Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Quick Talk, which is about shared services. And for those of you watching, it's a great pleasure to have Deborah King-Murray, Debbie, on board to give us her take into shared services for the government of Jamaica. So welcome, Debbie. She has an extensive experience in shared services. And I believe that we're all going to be taking in all the effort and work and her experience for the over 25 years of diversified experiences that led in more than 15 Caribbean territories, Miami, Panama, Latin America. She's also led multiple projects and initiatives, including implementation of HR information systems. And she's currently serves as the program manager for shared services of Jamaica, and it's a great pleasure to have you here today for this session. And we're going to having a presentation that Deborah is going to be sharing with us. Then we're going to do some Q&A. You can use both chats depending on platform that you're seeing us, or so either LinkedIn or YouTube. And at the end, we'll have 10 minutes of software solutions can enable shared services environment. So thank you, Debbie, for joining us.
Thank you, Hugo, for having me. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to everyone listening, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening from.
Afternoon on this side of Europe, yes.
On your side. All right.
So the floor is yours. I mean, we would love to learn your experience and share that with the community as well as, well, we'll see what you give us, but we'll have some time to talk afterwards as well.
Okay, thank you, Hugo. Okay, so about myself, good morning again, everyone, afternoon, evening, and thank you for that introduction, Hugo. Just a little bit about myself. I'm the program manager for the Shared Corporate Services Unit, and we are here today to talk about shared corporate services, and specifically HR services within the public sector. I'm a member of the Transformation Implementation Unit, which is an arm of the Ministry of Finance and Public Service Jamaica. We have been established in 2017 with a mandate for the implementation of public sector transformation, focusing on 5 pillars of public sector transformation. My focus today, and listeners, is on the shared corporate pillar as well as HR transformation. So for those of you who are not very familiar where I'm from, Jamaica. We are the third largest island in the Caribbean after Cuba and Hispaniola. Jamaica is located approximately 90 miles south of Cuba and 100 miles west of Haiti. It has a population of about 3 million people with a upper middle class income society, and we boast a very rich democratic It has a population of about 3 people with a upper middle class income society, and we boast a very rich democratic apologies, not quite sure what's happening with the audio. There was some feedback. Should I proceed?
Yes, I think we're good now, Debbie. Yes. You're good to go, Debbie, now.
Good to go?
Sorry for that. Yes.
Okay. All right, so just to recap briefly, Jamaica is the third largest island in the Caribbean after Cuba and Hispaniola, located approximately 90 miles south of Cuba and 100 miles west of Haiti. Population of approximately 3 million persons with an upper middle society, and we boast a very rich democratic tradition since 1962, when the country gained political independence from Britain. In terms of the Jamaican public sector, we have approximately 120,000 employees, and we have approximately 140 entities. Now, we have been rationalizing these entities, so we are seeing a reduction there, but these are the statistics to date. The government of Jamaica is the largest single employer in the island, and we currently have a very high dependence on the state for public services. So the public sector is a very important component of the functioning of the island of Jamaica. And we have disparate systems and processes scattered across all of these different public sector entities, which is why the transformation of the public sector is essential and critical to our status as progressive developing society. The vision that we have for the public sector in terms of our transformation is a modern public service that is fair, values people, and consistently delivers high quality services. So we find that in a lot of transformation activities and programs, Hugo and team, you often find lots of policies, plans, and programs, but no vision. And it is therefore important that we have a vision to anchor the policies and the programs that we are striving to achieve in the public sector in Jamaica. And as such, this is the vision that we are striving to achieve. We also have a vision for the shared corporate services of Jamaica, which is rolled into our transformation vision. And this is for the creation of a single shared corporate services entity, delivering 7 functions to ministries, departments, and agencies of government with increased efficiency and effectiveness, and of course, compares favorably with similar public sector shared corporate services globally. So we are striving for that in terms of our shared corporate services initiative. In terms of shared services, what is shared services? And in the context of our GOG transformation, shared corporate services is the consolidation of select administrative and transactional operations and functions that would normally be done separately in each ministry, department, or agency for delivery through a single point, which is the shared services. Of course, not all services are ideal for delivery through this model, and these functions may refer to as, the back office, or otherwise known as the operations support activities that are ideally servicing a wide cross-section of users. For the shared services to be effective, it must have some features in terms of the selection of these services, and that is key and critical to the functioning of the effective shared services, regardless of the service line. This will allow ministries, departments, and agencies to focus on their core business activities, and all of this is striving to achieve competitive advantage. The shared corporate services seeks to optimize efficiency through the use of resources as we strive for economies of scale, to reduce the cost of delivering services and ultimately improve the customer experience. And although some custom, yes, Hugo. Okay. Although some of these services are internal, they impact either directly or indirectly our external customers, which is the public of Jamaica. And shared corporate services is managed as a business in the provision of services to clients. And as such, we see the process owners, business leaders, managers, and employees, as clients, and not just users of the service. So what are the benefits to be accrued by implementing shared corporate services? We aim to improve the quality of service within the public sector. And this is going to be seen through the reduction of the back office costs of government and redirecting available resources to front office or customer services, essentially allowing the ministries, departments, and agencies to focus on their core business activities and be supported through the administrative experts in the shared corporate services. So how will this be achieved? Typically through 6 levers of change. And the shared corporate services supports these levers of change to drive efficiency and benefits. So firstly, process simplification and standardization. For services to be passed through the shared services, they have to be standardized and they have to be simplified. So what you find is a key effort and concentration on the design of your business processes to lean these business processes and to ensure that experience of one public sector worker in one ministry is the same as the experience in another. So there is an expectation of service delivery. By doing this, we remove duplication and improve utilization. So instead of having different entities performing the same routine functions, you consolidate this in the shared services, and so you improve the utilization of not only your human resources, but your physical resources and infrastructure as well. The adoption of continuous improvement is inherent in any shared corporate services operation. You have never arrived in a shared services. You're always on a cycle. And so you collect feedback as well as you gain improvement opportunities from changes in technology. Because the shared corporate services is a technology driven change. And a lot of the benefits come through automation. It comes through the implementation of a key component, which is the self-service features for employees in HR and for the processing and the workflow movement of documents in an electronic format, signatures, approvals, etc. That is how the shared services sees a lot of the benefits to be realized. Organizational development is also key because the shared services promotes a very flatter structure. A lot of the information is and decision making is consolidated at the point of service delivery. And this is because employees are bolstered through the business processes, standard operating procedures, and so they are equipped to deliver the services at hand. Very important is that effective performance management and control, because all activities in our shared corporate services is tracked and measured. And so there is an agreement that the shared services arrives at with its clients. And this is done through service level agreements. And so instead of anecdotal data, the shared corporate services has a very robust performance management system where integral to this is the provision of data and the ability to use data generated through this process to drive business decisions. Very important. So the government of Jamaica, as one, is pursuing HR management transformation, because we can't transform the public service if HR itself doesn't transform. So we are making HR operations more efficient and effective, as I indicated before, process simplification, process standardization through the use of technology. So it's really a technology-enabled transformation. HR can do the things that impact service delivery internally and externally. So the human resources are focused primarily on their day-to-day activities as it relates to supporting the business. So they have the capacity now and the capabilities to be able to focus attention on the core business, to do more business partnering, to be more involved in the development of the human resource capital, to maximize their impact on the critical activities related to the competitive advantages of their respective businesses. And they can do this comfortably and be assured because the routine operational functions are now processed through the shared corporate services arm of the of HR delivery. So for HR, the implementation of the shared services is a component of the HR transformation through the adaptation of the new HR implementation model, which is an adaptation of the URIC model, and also through the implementation of My HR Plus as the human resource enterprise capital management system. Of course, all of these work through to ensure that your payroll is now more accurate because HR drives the payroll, the systems are interconnected, and they are supported in that way. So HR is able to focus on customers, processes, technology, and structure. So where are we now? We're now looking at the shared corporate services implementation as it relates to human resources. We in Jamaica are proud because we have established the first public sector shared services in the English-speaking Caribbean. And as I indicated before, there are 7 service lines that we are implementing. But for the purpose of this discussion today, we are focused on the human resources, including payroll shared services. So we successfully launched the pilot in HR shared services in March of 2021 and payroll shared services in February 2022. I'm happy to report that we have completed successfully both pilots. We are now able to better manage the payroll and HR data, which enables decision making. We are drawing on lessons learned to accelerate the implementation. And it is also important to note here that notwithstanding the impact of the COVID, and if you would recall at that time, that was when we were having a lot of no movement and restrictions, etc. And we were able to implement the payroll and HR shared services quite successfully and quite seamlessly without impacting the delivery of service. As a matter of fact, many of our clients were not even aware of that transition. So for the performance of the HR shared services, we achieved an average of 95% performance against the service level agreements, which shows that the solution is viable, it is workable, and our clients attest to that because we achieved a good customer service satisfaction rating as well at 75%. For the payroll shared service, we were able to successfully utilize and implement the My HR Plus self-service features for the processing of employee claims and allowances, and also in facilitation of a lot of the employee-facing services that we implemented for employees in the MDAs. So, for example, employees could now, at their fingertips, send through requests for their employment verification letters or letters of that nature that they use to process their personal business and activities. They could have those downloaded instantly along with their pay slips to process their banking transactions, etc. So that was quite transformative in terms of the experience of employees. And right now we are currently on the way in terms of our planning and preparations to move towards the establishment of the permanent organization. So in terms of looking at our journey, important considerations that I would share for anybody who is contemplating a similar change or persons who are in fact going through the change is that, as you know, the shared services focuses on people, processes, and technologies, and you have to establish your case for change. For the GOJ, we have no choice but to transform for sustainability and for competitiveness. But in terms of your respective organizations, etc., you will have to establish that case for change, and that because that is what you're going to be using to bring people along with you in the journey. It's a large change activity, and so that is very important. At the outset, establishing the business case. Is this a viable solution? Do you know where you want where you are in terms of your current state and where you intend to be for future state? And you establish your business case. And so once you have your case for change and your business case, you are well on your way. In terms of our GeoG experience, we utilize the Prince2 methodology of project implementation, which is basically an approach that is product-driven and incorporates stages and gates for and gates. So, for example, you don't move from one stage to another without a review and without a determination that the products and activities that you intended to complete in this stage are ready for you to move to the next stage. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to progress and track your projects in more detail, and to also manage your costs, to deal with any escalating commitments, and to ensure that you are well on your way towards transitioning. So we move from high-level design, which is basically at the beginning, when you try to ensure that you set your stage in terms of where you're going, what are the benefits that you intend to deliver, because essentially what you're striving to do is improve service and reduce cost. And then you look at what is it that you need to change. How are you going to deliver the change? You develop your target operating model and your future vision state in terms of where you're going to be. Then you move into detailed design, which is when you now enter into the collaborations. For us, we collaborated very strongly with our HR and payroll practitioners, involving them in the design of the new processes, looking to see what could work in the shared services as opposed to what would be retained in the ministries and departments and agencies, looking to see what would be the responsibilities, looking to see what would be the critical to quality features for which the shared services would be held accountable. For example, volume, accuracy, time, accessibility, customer service, etc. Then once you're completed with all of that, we moved into build and test, which is where we now align the designs. So for example, with the MyHR Plus, we would have had our functional requirements for the different services laid out in detailed design. In build and test, we would work with our vendor to build these new functional requirements into the solution and also to test it. Once all of those activities were completed, then we would look at ensuring that we completed all our technology and non-technology requirements, all our products, all the enablers that would go into creating the shared services, such as the build out of Saxtorp, which is where our service center is located, along with other activities. Critical also is our business and people change, because the involvement of stakeholders is critical. People are the ones that are going to be implementing the change. So change management and communication, very important. And, we had lots of interactions in this regard to ensure that we were able to move forward. And a strong partnership with your vendor is very important, because you are going to need that support and work in relationship to see your successful implementation. So some of the key challenges that we had to overcome during our implementation journey included resistance to change. People don't like change, and that is just the bottom line. So how do you get persons to move along with you in the change? That is something that we are still working through. What critical to that is the case for change. You have to be able to get persons to buy into this vision of change and what it is, and more importantly, what is in it for them. So the solution for us was to infuse change management best practices, and the lessons learned is that in any change, especially transformative change, that is very critical. Understanding the technology and the processes, don't assume that because you gather persons in a training session and you train them today, they can go away and be productive tomorrow. You have to focus on training and retraining and sustaining the change, sustaining the capacity building. Because if you don't reinforce, what you will have happen is persons will revert to the way that they're accustomed to and fall back, and you won't see the material benefits of the change. So you have to create that opportunity for reinforcement. You also have to put steps in place to encourage and receive feedback. So for example, we would have implemented within one of the service lines through the MyHR Plus the feedback request, service request. So team members and users could send through their feedback at any time. In addition, you have to ensure that you have your client meetings where you present to them the data, the performance, and you provide that opportunity for the continuous loop of information, because continuous improvement is the only thing that's going to get you and keep you current once you have implemented. Another challenge was the understanding and interpretation of GOJ policies and procedures, because you have disparate ministries, departments, and agencies who have different practices, who may have interpreted the same policy, but implemented in a different way. And so the reinforcement of the policies and as I indicated before, the standardization and streamlining in terms of your processes is very important to overcome that hurdle. For us in the GOJ, we also have to consider policy restrictions, because we have some, and you will find this in government, other government entities too, you have legislative policy activities that you have to be compliant with. And this may conflict with some of the more progressive ways of doing things and new ways of doing things, bolstered by technology, for example, using workflows and self-service, etc. And so you have to work with your policy team and influence the adjustments in policies to support your various functions. We also found that the procurement process was also a challenge in terms of the time that it took to procure items as well. And so what that forced us into was to improve our planning. So we had more lead time to allow for the procurement process to take its course, as well as in terms of resourcing the center, in terms of getting persons and key resources to be able to move things along. And importantly, also as it relates to training, not just training in terms of processes, but training in terms of soft skills, emotional intelligence. You have to allow persons to be able to transition, because they are now transitioning in culturally, because you're moving from one way of doing things to another, and you are moving into an environment within the shared services that is really a service delivery culture. So how do you equip persons to move from I am processing an activity over to I am delivering a service? So in terms of looking at the future of shared services is here to stay. The data from the shared services organization network supports that. We continue to see a progression in the maturity of the shared services model. In last year's survey and report, 30% of the services said that they had been in operation for at least 7 years. And this was an increase in terms of the previous year. And overall, we continue to see the potential for growth as the shared services model in terms of planning and implementing shared services program. And in the especially global shared services, almost 50% of all shared services include human resources, or they hire to retire suite of services. And so HR is critical in driving and supporting the digital agenda. And shared corporate services has a lot of value in driving and supporting the digital agenda, because technology is the hallmark of all shared services operation. It is the foundation, and it is what will drive and sustain and therefore contribute to your government's agenda as it relates to making the country more relevant, making the country more competitive, and supporting these activities. Increasingly the more mature shared corporate services environments are incorporating artificial intelligence in more than one way, in terms of their shared services model, and making, for example, self-service more intuitive, more readily accessible and readily available, as it relates to being able to drive out the delivery of the service. So as it relates to processes, people, and technology, as we look back at the shared services, for processes, we see greater automation, and that is coming, as I indicated, AI and other features. In terms of people, new roles and skill sets are coming on into the space. You have new roles emerging, such as the chief innovation officers and so on, as people get to appreciate and understand that the boundaries to the shared services are actually limitless. And as technology evolves, the shared corporate services will also evolve. And so you see, in terms of technology, more connection, more connectivity through digital means. There's a stronger shift in terms of digital collaboration versus physical collaboration. And this was really thrust on all of us, especially with the COVID experience. But it has also encouraged the shared services to move to a more virtual space. And the whole methodology or work modalities as it relates to hybrid way of working is on the horizon. So Hugo, and colleagues listening, the government of Jamaica is doing it. We are very committed to the delivery and improvement of the public services in Jamaica. And we are utilizing the shared corporate services as one of those vehicles of efficiencies and growth and development, and in particular, HR shared services. So thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I mean, it gives us, I mean, I had a lot of questions. You answer most of them in a presentation, which is great. It gives us an idea of what was the background, where you are now, what was the challenges, how you overcome them, what's in the future. But there have been some queries online, and for a few minutes, let's just try to address a few of them. One is, well, they love your shared services here to stay quote, but more on, I guess, they're asking what's your favorite moment of the process, and maybe the worst, and any advice for who is coming in and trying to build a shared service environment. So I guess it's a fun moment and the worst moment that you recall from this experience.
Okay. The fun moment, should I stop presenting or just continue?
We took that offline, so no worries.
Okay, all right, good.
You can stop it.
Okay, so in terms of my highlight, in terms of best moment, I would say the day when we actually started our training activities before we went into the service delivery, because that was really the culmination of all the work, getting everything together, completing all the designs, resourcing the team, building out the location, and the location was built out from a frame, from like nothing. Furnishing, put all the infrastructure, everything. So that day when we actually started the training for the shared services team, I think that was really my favorite day. In terms of the not so favorite day, I would think it would be those initial consultations in terms of getting persons to see the change. It's one thing when you say to persons, who have no knowledge at all on shared service, this is really the preferred way to go. These are the benefits. This is the case for change. But you can't touch it, you can't hold it, you can't feel it. You don't have any kind of interaction with it. It's just a pie in the sky. It's just an idea. Mm-hmm. But so moving, that was very challenging. But when you finally got persons to be able to see And one of the things that we did with that was actually to assist that was actually through a study tour to an established shared corporate services in the public sector in the UK. And when you can actually see that visually represented, you see it in operation day to day, you speak to the team, it really helps in terms of doing that. So that I think would be my answer to those questions.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for myself, and we work on my HR Plus, which is it's a product by Quidgest. So I've been in some sessions with you, and I'd love to hear from your side that you mentioned that technology is enabler of the process. I mean, of course, all the SOPs, all the change management, all the learning needs to be there, but technology does play a role to help in the process. If we went back, what would we do differently than we did in terms of technology or the services? Would you change anything?
In terms of technology and the services, I think there is always, I always see opportunities for improvement. I think we did a pretty good job in terms of communicating the requirements. In terms of improvement, probably we could have done that quicker. In terms of the speed at which it took to move from functional requirements to change order to implementation. So I would say if there was anything to be done, it would be this speed of delivery, I think would be something that could be done to improve that.
Yeah, because we will also, be getting and seeing the results as well. Well, I think we have a few questions, but we're also getting on time of what's, okay, there's one more, there's telling me. Okay, so I understand that before this implementation, you didn't have an employee self-service or manager. How do these interfaces help users today in a perspective of shared service? I think you touched upon one or two topics, but maybe you can expand a little those examples.
Okay. All right. Shared service, for any shared services operations in HR, especially employee self-service, manager self-service, is a game changer. It actually represents a tier in the service delivery. So the shared services delivery model in terms of the target operating model usually has 3 legs. So you have, but before you get to 1, 2, and 3, you have tier 0. And tier 0 is really where you empower the employees and the managers to do and manage their own activities that doesn't really involve or need to involve HR interaction. And so you are empowering and equipping the manager with the tools necessary to manage his or her team, and more importantly, the employees in terms of accessibility. So what the employee self-services does, especially if it's intuitive, it assists the employees to always have HR at their fingertips. So whatever time of the day or night, you can log on to the system, you can see your information, you can apply for your vacation leave, you can submit your claims for processing in the payroll. It's not restricted to time. So one of the transformative activities would be accessibility. Before, you would have to wait until you're in the office, print your timesheets and your leave form, take it to your manager, then the HR department, or whatever the process is. But it was very manual and you had to be there. So the self-service transforms in that area. It also transforms in terms of accessibility to service. So the shared services in HR actually created many more avenues to access service. So persons could access services through the self-service, in addition to the phone, the chat, and all of those other access areas. And so, for example, in our GOJ context, one of the things that employees need in terms of their day-to-day life and functioning is what we call the employment verification letters. And so in order to do business, you need this letter. And you also need a copy of usually it asks you for a copy of the last 3 pay slips. So employees, again, would normally have to either send an email or go in person to apply for these through the HR department. Now, through the shared services, the employees go online and they fill out their request form and they send it, comes straight into the shared services. A ticket is created. The shared services agent processes the request. The letter is sent back in the person's inbox or ready for download. In addition, they can have access to their pay slips at any time through any method that they have connection with in terms of accessing the MyHR Plus, whether it be through their laptops, their tablets, their cell phones, etc. So that is one of the ways in which the self-service actually, or those are some of the ways in which self-service actually transforms the delivery of HR services to the clients or employees.
Yeah, great. And just to build on top of that, it also gives you the opportunity to thinking of new services that you might want to provide that are employee centric, just add them there on employee self-service. So today the reality might be letters like you're saying, or requests, an embassy letter, or requests anything that you think of today. But even tomorrow, we might even extend our services to add more items in there. So it's always a possibility to even services that we don't think today that we can just lean into shared service to do it and employee
Yes,
self-service.
mhm. Yes, because we also added the feedback service request, so employees can provide feedback at their leisure. We also added some other payroll requests, such as the submission of voluntary deductions. So instead of having to go to, to physically take these in, they can do those online. So the opportunities created by a self-service, especially one with workflows that can be constructed at any time, is really a game changer for the delivery of HR shared service.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for being with us and share their experience. I mean, there's other questions, but we really need to get going. I'm just gonna show you some products by HR, like the My HR Plus solution that Debbie was just mentioning. And we'll actually be focusing on employee self-service and managed self-service as an enabler of digital transformation on case of shared services, but also the core, the payroll and the HR modules that can help you and enable that. So we have a short video and I'll see you right back. I'll be doing a short demo on some of the products that can enable HR shared services and give you some example of case studies as we listened to some of before. So the software solutions from HR vary from the employee self-service, claims, recruitment, performance, training. Those are some of what we call strategic modules or components of the HMS, or the human capital management system of the ERP. There are also some additional components of HR, like the people record, or the core HR records management system, the payroll, reporting and analytics, time and attendance, health and safety, org charts, among others. So these are the main modules. Then there's additional components that can be used. Without having the time to go through all of them and how they can enable shared services, we'll be focusing on 2 to 3 products that we believe that play a major role in HR transformation to a shared services environment. So one of them is self-service, and namely both employee and manager self-service. So this product is a front end for the employee of his record. He's able to see his data, check their information, do time register, submit leaves, do attendance, do claims, updating personal information, request salaries, do his component of performance. So all these components give a front end to the employee where he's able to see the data and also submit claims, which is an important part when you're doing shared services, and requests also queries and submit
general requests like grievance, benefits, performance disputes is where he has access to the training environment, so registered to his training actions, past training actions he's attended, evaluation forms is where he can issue a series of reports related to payslip, employee record, performance, is where he can also have he or she can also have access to forums that are made available or links that are made available to him by the organization. So this component is the view from the employee side, but there is also the component from the manager perspective. He can get notifications, sees employees that belong to him in the org chart, approve leave, vacation, claims, do the component of setting goals and KPIs, also, inputting training needs, evaluation forms. So decentralize also not only the components of performance, but also from training. It gives them a scope of all the requests that flow through him, other than flowing directly to shared services as well. But he also can apply different requests like recruitment, replacement, unauthorized absence, disciplinary actions. He can issue reports from his unit or his groups of units or departments, summary of attendance, training, performance, changes in his staff. So he would have a view over his employees and be able to manage better and having access to that information, keeping in mind that GDPR also plays a role in this process. In claims, what most notable is the opportunity for both of them to, request overtime, request travel. It's automated, integrated with payroll, request advances in allowances, mileage claims over time. So gives them that opportunity to reduce the paper base. And how these shared services can be enabled by using this software. So we know that it increases employee experience if I have access to my information, if I'm able to submit queries directly and see the results of those. So I don't have to go into any component and be asking my manager or my HR staff of, my address is different or it should be changed. It's a faster service because employee requests are done quickly and even questions can be answered correctly. So we want to make sure that if you have a shared services environment, that questions are answered by the business partner or the consultant on shared services that knows exactly what's the correct and quickly, because they're used to having replies to those particular questions, so they know how fast you can answer those, other than going in and waiting on an email from HR, etc. It also fosters positive interactions between employees and HR. So that level of answers and readiness is something that we've seen in implementation of shared services. Also standardization. If there's a process flow that works for a shared service environment, that means all the different companies, organizations in your group, if you're implementing a shared services in a group, for example, they follow the same process. So there's no different way of treating some processes than the others. So that standardization is something that we all know from shared services, but it can be enabled by use of technology where the workflows are embedded or they're designed in the system, as in our case, they're designed by the client, and they can that we can make sure that they followed for every single process. It clears also communication and increases collaboration among employees and departments due to this, ensuring that I know that my SLA, when I submit a query of this type, would take 2 days or 3 days to get this letter or to get this document that I need from HR, and I know exactly how to do it, and I get it in a fast and a speed way. It also gives you access to the employees to access and update their own HR information without reducing a lot of the admin work that it's putting in. But I think one of the key things that most people don't actually think when enabling shared services with technology is the opportunity to have new employee-centric services be provided. So even if we're limited to what we know today, what are the current services that we can give to employees, we can also increase it in the future. So either it's to just create a new request type to have, for example, enroll in your health plan, or if you're planning a run or marathon or something, then you can just send a message through for our employees to gather. So even new types of services that we're not thinking today, but they're employee-centric, we can have them available as well. Moving from this decentralization of shared services and the employee manager self-service components, let's look at the core. Because the core of HR module, it's where I have my full record. It's where I have my information of the posts that I've been to, my career path, my contract determinations, my salary scales, my leave, my training actions, my performance score, all the management reports. So it's all my personal data, my employment data. It's where I basically have all together this information regarding to the employee. So it's one thing that it's important is to ensure that when we're thinking of an HR shared services environment and using an HR module or component, that we have the system is enabled for shared services. So making sure that a couple of things that we're going to be seeing afterwards as the main components. So the system gives you a view, a glimpse of what's all the information that it's stored in the very different views of the different modules that can compose the HR suite. So here it's basically what I have, a centralized, unified view of the employee record to be able to manage, even though I can be using a training module or performance module or even self-service components. The other component is the payroll module, which is we want to reduce as much as admin work, and that's for sure one of the benefits of using an HR solution, which is to ensure that Social Security, all the files, all the payroll processes, all the management controls of the either annually or monthly or whatever pay cycle you're using, to ensure that it's integrated with your financial systems, to have a smooth process from beginning to end. It has the capability of doing retroactive payments, similar to your lumps allowance, acting allowance, tables, etc. All the files that are, for payment and upload, which are pretty much standard on payroll. But what I think is more important is how these can be enabled. So when looking at an HR and payroll services, we can all see the streamlined processes, ensure that we have faster times responses, that we can increase accuracy and compliance to ensure that whatever needs to be paid follows the correct process and it's paid correctly. But we also forget to think about the other components. So there's a couple of components that are built-in feature that the system must have, like multiple access levels and roles, that to ensure that your HR business partners from, let's say, a company in the group only has access to some levels of details, their HR business partners, in comparison to whoever is working on the shared services or the competency share services roles, so they ensure that they have different views of the system, and the systems need to be able to have this level of ensuring that the users are limited in what they see or they can do depending on the role that they take on the system. And that's partly because, for example, on our system, we can have a multitude of different options. So we can have a standard loan that, let's say each company in the group has their own HR and payroll system, and they operate completely separate, so they have full scope of all the processes of HR and admin work. Or they are in the full share services, where I'm in an HR business partner in an organization, and all the processes are actually sent to share services, and they're run by share services, and I get the feedback from the results of that, and I can just deal with a one-to-one or do more strategic work in terms of HR. or hybrid, which is something that it falls in between, where there's some components that are shared services enabled, where other components are done by the HR business partners on their respective companies. So it can have this possibility of having an hybrid where some components go into one and some other components go into the other direction. Also, you have to be thinking in mind that having a shared service in my environment and having one platform to manage a group or to manage multiple organizations gives you enhancement in data analytics. So it gives you one window into one data, one truth, as we normally say it. But it also gives you the possibility of HR processes that can be scaled and changed to the company's needs without having to change all those different softwares in between, or all those different processes that there exist throughout the groups, for example, or governments in the case, for example, of the government of Jamaica. All the different ministries might just have one standardized process operation, so one SOP. But also in other cases that we have, for example, in the University of Nova in Lisbon, where different faculties under the same umbrella of the same university might have different processes, and they're not in fully shared services, but they can also operate. Or in the government of Azores, where the solution is also available and in use, where the different islands and different ministries centralize all the payroll and all the processing as well. So those are just three case studies, and you can find it more on the website. And if you want to see additional information on how you can implement shared services or some components of shared services, as I mentioned, this can be a hybrid thing, or it can be a process of transition. We know that rolling out to shared services does play, has a major impact on processes and operations and how your HR is organized. And also there's a lot of not only data change and software change, but people change as well. So change management is key in implementing. So if you want to know more on how those solutions and our solutions of HR at Quidgest can help you, you can also check our website or drop us a message as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Debbie, for joining and sharing your experience. Thank you, everyone, for joining us online. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and to the next Q Talks. You see the link somewhere down here below. And also, if you're made it this far, you also can download our ebook on HR. So you have 5 axes on changes in terms of HR that can be enabled. And see you in the next Q Talk. Bye, everyone.